10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hello and welcome to the Space Coast Rockets live viewing of the millage resolution. We're going to have a great discussion, and what that is an increase in pay for seasoned teachers, technical training for students, and similar purposes on the county ballots upcoming. This is going to be an open discussion forum. We really hope to get some questions from any of our viewers so we can help answer them, try to put some facts out there, and also hear kind of both sides of the coin here. I'm Jacqueline Boniuto. I'll be your host for the next hour or so, and we will be discussing this topic. Excuse me. I'm a lifetime Brevard resident. I am a mother to 2 elementary school students in our public school system. I'm also a local Girl Scout leader, and I spend a lot of time with children in our community. With me today, I have 2 special guests. I have Kayte Campbell, our Brevard Public Schools, one of our board members, and also Sarah Ayers, an active local political volunteer and business consultant. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so let's get to it. The first thing, I think we should really read the language that we're going to be seeing on our ballots come November 8th, and are already open now for early voting. And I'm going to go ahead and read it, luckily. So for first, increasing teacher and staff pay, funding for technical training for students, and other similar purposes. Shall the school district of Brevard County authorize a 1 mil ad valorem millage for 4 years to ensure student achievement, recruit and retain teachers and staff with competitive salaries, and distribute funds as state requires to charter schools based on their proportionate share of district enrollment, with all expenditures to be reviewed by an independent citizens oversight committee. I think that's a very good point to point out. Kayte, why would our public school system seek funding this way?
Well, first of all, our education funding in the state of Florida is a lot more complicated than people realize most of the time. So we know our taxes are collected, but then many people don't realize they go up to the state, they get put in a big pot, and they get state adds extra money, and they redistribute them to all the school districts with a little bit extra for counties that have high cost of living, and a little bit less for school districts that have, our counties have lower cost of living. Brevard is one of those. And so we have sorry, there's a hot echo. I'm trying to hopeless the audience isn't hearing it. Anyway, what we're dealing with is a lot of wage compression. All of our teachers. It's not just for teachers. It's for our support staff, our administrators, every single employee group. They have wage compression issues. And just to explain that a little more clearly, just probably heard that going around. We have our beginning teachers making this wonderful raise for the last year. And the governor and the legislature added experience who are making just a little bit more. Our bus drivers, we were able to raise the minimum wage for bus drivers and support staff $10 an hour. Actually, hang on. Jacqueline, I think we're let's see if we can fix this. Feedback and echoing. Yeah.
Okay, we're having a little technical difficulties here with the audio. We are working on those now. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Well, for the time being, I think it's also kind of good to circle back to what is a millage. I don't know if everyone knows what that is that might be watching, or all of our voters. And basically, it's a percentage of your, it's a 100th with the TH, when you have your decimal, after that. and of a thousandth of your for every $100,000. Excuse me. So, for instance, what the tax would be, I believe I saw, I think it was something that the BPS put out, don't quote me on that, but the average home in Brevard County is about $163,000 on its what it's taxed on. This is not when you go on Zillow and look up and see what your home may be worth to a retail buyer, but what you are being taxed on. So say your home is being taxed on $160,000, you would be paying $160 for the year. Is that correct, Kayte?
It is. And make a clarification because people do make up the market value and the taxable value. And one of the reasons why there's such a difference is because of the state statute that says our taxable value can only increase a maximum of 3% every year. And of course, our home values have soared much greater than that. So that keeps our taxable values low.
Okay.
Well, 150,000 is the average assessed value in Brevard County, not 160.
How much did you say?
Say that again.
153,000 per home is what is considered.
Okay, so 153.
That's been in the BPS marketing campaign.
Okay. Okay, so 153,000. So that would be equal to 153, dollars per year additional added to your home taxes that will go towards this funding. Sarah, what are your thoughts about that?
Are we reconvening or are we dealing with the feedback issues? Echoing and feedback.
I don't hear any feedback any longer. It seems good to me. Are you hearing it on your end?
I am. Maybe are you good?
I'm hearing it also.
Yeah. I'm happy to go forward anyway.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and move forward? I hear you clearly, so that's a good thing. If anyone can comment below, if there's any way you can't hear us, please let us know.
Okay, well, until we reconvene, I'm happy to speak. I voted today early in Brevard County against this ad valorem millage increase, which is a property tax increase. 1 mil, 1,000. So yes, the average for the home that was given out by BPS formal communication is $153 a year increase per year. If this was to pass, I think there are a lot of concerns in Brevard Public Schools and meritorious and worthy concerns. I oppose this referendum on two fronts. Number one, on principle, from a financial perspective, and number two, on process. Brevard County could not afford this additional tax increase. This would amount to the third tax increase ask in 8 years in Brevard County. That is too much. We are living in times of 40-year record inflation. There are many parents, teachers, and staff who are working more than one job to pay their bills. And we are also facing in Brevard County an affordable housing crisis. And what you don't see in the information campaign emanating from the district, so they've put out slide presentations in board meetings and social media and online on the website, and there's I think good information there, but it only addresses the small contingent of the community who might benefit, and not the larger contingent of Brevard County citizens, voters, property, taxpayers, where there's a cost. So any proper economic analysis shows all the pros and all the cons, the costs and the benefits. And so these slide presentations from the district do not show that. There's a 3-part pie graph. 80% goes to all teachers and staff. 16% goes to student services programs like athletics, 4% goes to technology. So what I find very troubling, in particular, among other things with this millage rate increase, is that the very people where the marketing campaign is pitching they're going to benefit, meaning the teachers, they're also going to suffer because they live here and they have housing. Whether they own or rent, it doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to get hit by this millage increase. So if you're a owner, you're going to get an increase. If you're a renter, your landlord is going to pass it on to you. That's how free market economics works. So you're essentially asking the very people, this contingent of the population who you're trying to financially benefit, to also pay for your own benefit.
Right. So that's one side about it. That's the financial downside, I guess you could say, if there's a downside here with that. But going back to why we are looking to do, why the public schools are looking to do this, adding this millage, is because we are seeing, I'm assuming based on what I'm hearing from BPS, that we're having a difficult time retaining seasoned teachers. Have you seen any statistics on that, Kayte, on your board meetings?
Yes, we are. I'd love to go back. Oh, we got rid of Sarah's echo. Mine's still there. Oh, there we go. I'd love to go back, and just because Sarah brought up some really great points, and and really the one negative is the financial negative, the burden that all of us as taxpayers will have to pay in extra to our tax base. Now, I mentioned earlier, and sorry if I seemed a little disconjuncted earlier, but I wanted to point out that whatever money we collect on this 1 mil additional, that money does stay in Brevard. It doesn't go to the state. It doesn't get reduced. It stays in Brevard. But, she made a great point. I want to address a couple of things. First of all, the idea, the negative is in particular of the additional financial burden is because of the inflation. I've heard people say, this is just not a good time. And I get it. I don't know that there's ever a good time. And I totally understand and believe that there are people who just are opposed to tax increases for whatever reason at all. And I get that. And I want people to vote according to their conscience, but I don't want them to vote based on misinformation or lack of information. And so, the thing is, she made one of her points was that, it's benefiting only a small contingent. I would argue with that, because I believe that having strong schools, good schools that are fully staffed, so we're not constantly hearing, about students that are in overcrowded classrooms because we don't have enough teachers, or overcrowded buses, or whatever, it raises the level of the whole entire community. When we have good quality schools that are fully staffed and students who are being successful, it makes Brevard more successful. It benefits the whole entire county when our reputation is for being one of the best school districts in the state. And the truth is, right now, we have teachers who live in Brevard who are going across the county line into Orange, or across the South County line into Indian River, both counties who have an additional millage, who are able to make thousands of dollars more per year. And they're doing that with just an extra 15-minute, 20. You can get from anywhere in Brevard, a little extra 15, 20-minute extra drive, you can get to a school in one of those counties. And so we are definitely seeing teachers leave. We're seeing them leave the field and go into another field, leave our county, go to another county. We're having every year additional issues. And I don't want to always just focus on teachers, because the truth is we're having that same kind of problem, a huge problem with bus drivers, with instructional assistants. And so just across the board, everybody's dealing with workforce shortage, but we are too. But unlike a private company who could say, you know what, let's find a way, let's find a new way of strategizing in our business model so that we can be more profitable, and then we can pay people more. Government entities, we're bound to the income that's given to us through taxes. That's just the nature of the beast. It's not like business. And so, when we talk about how we're going to retain people, there's other things that you can do that are not financial, that appreciate your staff and things like that. But the financial thing is a huge part of that. And so I also appreciate the comment about we're asking people to, pay for their own raise, right? But just to give it some perspective, you just shared that the average home, whether, 150,000, so it's, be a roughly $150 for average for people increase every year. But the kind of bonus that, not bonuses, but kind of salary increases we're able to give would be, for our 19 plus year teachers, almost $7,000 additional per year. For our support staff that have 18 plus years in Brevard, $4,300 a year, and then it kind of stair steps down based on their level of experience. We can't do that kind of additional funding that some of these other counties right next to us or other industries can pay our staff. We can't do that with budget cuts. We can't do that. We've been cutting budgets ever since I've been on the board. We've cut well over $30 million since I've been on the board, but we can't cut our way to that kind of an increase. We just can't.
Yeah. So this is one way of raising funds, of course, and increasing the funds. I saw a point on a local Facebook chat and the city chats, and they said maybe parents that have students in the system might be like more for this, because they're like, okay, if I broke down my average home cost, it would literally be change every day, 50 cents a day. Would I be willing to send that in with my student, just theoretically, to have, more long-term teachers and more veteran teachers? And the reason why that is so important for our school system is the expertise that comes with that. Just that expertise and master teacher that's there really teaching our kids, which ends up working, growing up and, potentially working in our communities, nurses, teachers themselves or whatnot, business owners. So getting them that better, more competitive education with, others they could be competing for these jobs for. So, I guess my question for you, Sarah, is, would that be worth it for, only parents, or would people that are not parents be considering, paying a little extra to have, this benefit to society in the future?
Thank you, Kayte. You do a wonderful job on the school board, even if we see slightly different on this one issue. And thank you, Jacqueline, for the question. In answer, we already do pay. We already do pay. So the citizenry is not morally obligated to always say yes every time the government can't manage their budget and puts their hand out and asks to take from the taxpayers. Senior citizens on fixed incomes, people who can't afford homes, parents working more than one job. This is, in my humble opinion, an outrageous millage increase at this time right now. I hope this gets voted down. I don't think this county and this community can afford this. I think this is bad economics and bad finances. There are people in the community who have questions about the current budget. Why did we add approximately 70 new administrative positions? Why is enrollment decreasing in the BPS school system? These are questions that we don't have solid answers to. I think when anyone is given, Jacqueline, to answer your question, whenever anyone is told, here's a financial outlay, and here's how it breaks down by day, it's 40 cents a day or 50 cents a day, you're being subjected to a marketing tactic, a sales ploy. People who work with budgets, which I do, you have an annual projection. You don't do it by day. And in the information campaign emanating from the school district, which you can see online, you can find on social media, online, all the slides, they break it down by cents per day. That's a marketing ploy. When the school district finalized and adopted their annual budget, which was in September, they didn't do it by cents per day. It was an annual projection. And by the way, it went up this year. BPS has approximately $200 million more this year than it did the previous fiscal year. It's about $1.5 billion. It's up from the previous year. Let's talk about how beginning teachers got a huge minimum starting salary from the state of Florida in this last legislative session. That's a huge boon.
Yeah, and I think that's what Kayte was mentioning too with the wage compression. And I guess that's where we're circling back to, you know, is it fair if you're in another industry, you know, you work at a factory and you've been there for 20 years and you've made your little increases perhaps over the years, and then some new hire comes in fresh out of college and they come in at a higher starting rate, and there's, I believe, only a few $100 difference. Don't quote me on that. Difference in this company.
Right. In some circumstances. So again, some great questions, and so glad you're bringing these up, Sarah, because these are things I'm hearing too, and can be addressed. And again, sometimes people will still not agree, and just in principle, as you said earlier. But I want to address a couple things. I think I know who you've been talking to with the 70 administrative positions, because I got that same note and actually went to staff and said, okay, how is this coming out? Because over the years, how our staff positions were presented were different, but we actually have not added 70 administrative positions. It was a difference of, I've looked at it, it's a difference of how they were listed in different ways. We're now reporting it the way we report it to the state. So we have not added 70 plus. We've added an extra principal and an assistant principal for a new elementary school that opened. We've changed some positions from assistant directors to directors, but we have not added 70 additional administrative positions. The budget increase, you're absolutely right. We have had an increase of our budget this year. But I will say this, the $200 million, that first of all, that we do have a $1.5-ish billion budget this year that will not be that. This is kind of a, I'm not going to say a one-off, but that includes a significant amount of our federal COVID relief funds, which is not recurring. It will go away. It also includes our capital budget. It also includes our half-cent sales surtax, which, because the economy has been moving and people are buying and inflation's causing prices to go up, our half-cent sales tax income couldn't go up and down according to how the economy is going. That is also part of that and has seen a big increase. So that's our whole entire budget. Our general fund, which is what we can pay salaries out of and textbooks and things for students, that actually increased by about $40-ish million, $43, I think, million this year. And every time, the budget, the state is generously gives school districts additional funding. The thing is, a lot of that additional funding comes with specific mandates. For example, when I first got on the board, the state had given a lot of extra money towards security. Well, we had to put that money towards security. And by the way, what we had to do for security cost us more than that. So we used all the money from the state, but threw in some more from the general fund. When the state gave extra funding for mental health, that had to go towards mental health. Every year, the state says, okay, school districts, you have to pay more into the FRS, which is a Florida retirement system, on behalf of all your employees. So all of those mandates kind of cut out of that money that we can use towards raises. And so it looks like, oh, you've got all the money in the world, but it's everything is specifically, not everything, but most of that funding is specifically tied to certain initiatives, certain things, certain mandates from the state. And it's not just money that can be used to freely go towards salaries. And so by the time we got that $43 million for this year increase, got cut down to about $4.3 million. And it takes about $4 million to give our entire all of our employee groups about a 1% raise. And unfortunately, over the last couple of years, the raises have been either non-existent for many of our staff. The last two school years, our support staff and administrators have gotten zero raise. We were able to give some nice big bonuses because of the COVID relief dollars, but we have not been able to give any raises except for the teacher raises with the salary allocation that the governor and the legislature so generously provided over the last couple of years. But I will tell you, our veteran teachers didn't feel so generously provided for example, this year when there was another big bump and they got, by the time we got to the end of the year, about $245 increase, whereas our newer teachers were getting still in the thousands. So it's it definitely is, continues to be a problem.
Okay, so going back to the verbiage or the language in this referendum, it does state that this is going to, they're asking for 4 years of this additional millage tax. So
Oh, we lost you.
here for a moment.
Oh, there you
My
go.
camera. There you go. Sorry about that. I didn't know if you heard my question about the language in the referendum here for it being a 4-year in length of adding this millage tax. What do you think about the short, it being so short term? Does that change your view on that at all, Sarah?
No. The length of the term does not change my view on the value or economics or worthiness of this proposed referendum. I think it should not be proposed at all. We generally have a representative government where we elect people to go and make these financial decisions for us. That is the primary job of our 5 school board members, is to manage a budget and make decisions on budget allocations so they don't have to go to the taxpayer. What's the average now? Every 3 years to ask for money from their hard-earned paychecks. That's their job, is to manage the budget. No, it does not influence my opposition to this millage increase. I think this millage increase is inappropriate. It hurts a lot of people, including teachers, staff of BPS, our largest employer in the county, parents with children in the BPS system. It hurts them all. And this is not a solution. This is not a long-term strategy. It's just another Band-Aid on an issue. What stops the district or individuals saying, hey, I need another increase? This isn't a long-term strategy. This is just a Band-Aid. This is not a long-term solution financially. This is the 3rd tax increase proposal in 8 years. And I think
can I address that?
Vote this down.
Yeah, I'd love to address that issue. And it's, tomato, but you said it's 3rd. You've said that a couple times. So I want to address that, the 3rd tax increase. I'm assuming you're talking about the half-cent sales surtax, which we as the Brevard County, voted for in 2018. No, I'm sorry, 2016. And I'm sorry, no, 2014. It was 6 years long. And then we just renewed in 2020. So it wasn't an increase, it was a renewal. You said something about, it's the job of one of the school board members by statute. One of our key responsibilities is to oversee and to vote on, to approve the budget. And you're absolutely right. That is one of our 3 core responsibilities as school board members. And, but as far as why go out to the voter, the only entity that can increase that, there's only 2 entities that can control revenue for school districts. One is the legislature, and they decide what our rates are going to be every year, and our regular rates, and then the public. And so if I can just show you really quickly, I'm going to show, I'd like to share my screen, and hopefully this will work. This is just a picture of our millage rates going back to 2010, 2011. You can see the bottom is the constants. The kind of light blue is our capital millage. It's stayed consistent over the last 12 years. The bottom number is just a general revenue fund. But then that top number is what the legislature changes every year. So basically, if you see the high point of 2012, that was as those millage rates continued to drop, what the legislature did was, because our home prices were rising after the recession, they lowered our millage rates so that we ended up paying about the same amount of taxes every year. I don't know about you, but I have gone to the Brevard County Tax Assessor's website, and you can actually look up your own tax rates. I've done this for myself, and you can see the rates have dropped on our Brevard County taxes for schools every year up to the point, if you look at this, the one that we just approved, and I say the school board approved, but the state handed it down to us. We couldn't have really changed it. Our current millage rate is the 3.247 for a total of 5.495. That's our total school taxes Brevard wide. So you see how it's continued to drop. And that's why you can see your tax bill year after year after year is about the same. I'll give you, for example, we moved into this house in 2014, and we've paid within $50 of the same rate, up or down, depending on the year, every year since we moved in. And so that's how the legislature is doing that. And so what it will end up doing is adding that. So for example, if you can see in 2023, it's 3.247. Next year, assuming the legislature follows their pattern and it drops a little bit again, if our home rate values continue to rise, then it would be the 3 point whatever plus 1. So it would be 4 point whatever. And so I just wanted to give people a perspective of how it is. And by the way, I think that would be excellent for everybody to just go figure out what actually how will it affect me? Are we talking $150 or am I in the higher end? Go to, if you don't have your tax bill in front of you, you can go to Brevard County Tax Collector website, Google that, and then enter your address and pull up your file, and you can see what you paid over the year. You can see, what your assessed value is for your current tax bill. And by the way, if it passes, we're not going to actually be paying it until next year. And so again, I know the situation right now is dire, and you know what, it may get worse. I'm an optimist, but it may get worse, but also it may get better. And so by the time we'll actually start paying these taxes, the additional millage, it will be next bill. The bill will get in the fall of 2023. And so whatever the millage the state sets for us, then it would be 1 mil on top of that.
Kayte, have we seen any statistics from our surrounding counties that do have a millage like this in effect currently, that it does in fact benefit teacher retention?
You know, that's a great question, and I wish I had graphs for that. I don't have those in front of me, but I'll just tell you. I can tell you a personal story. You know, I just won my reelection in August, and I was out campaigning, and this happened more than once to me. But this particular day, I was talking to a couple who was telling me that their daughter, who lives in Brevard, has taught Indian River County, and she was single, and she thought about moving or maybe switching to teach somewhere in Brevard, because there was a school where she had attended and she would love to go back to that. But then they said, well, but then she realized she was going to lose $5,000 just by teaching in her own county. And, what can we say? I can't convince her enough, but it's so much better. And she was willing to work in one of our Title I schools that has extended day. And, it's just really challenging. We don't have anything to offer. I'd love to say that people would do it just for the love of teaching, but they can teach just for the love of teaching 20 minutes south and make $5,000 to $7,000 more. Our bus drivers can leave and go drive for Amazon or Walmart or, the county and make, $5 more an hour. We can't compete with that. I'd love to think that they would stay because of the flexibility in the schedule, because they love kids. But the truth is, people have to feed their families. And Sarah made that good point. And they're having a hard time feeding their families on $15 an hour.
Sarah, any viewpoints on that? Have you, I know you said, is it right that you said that you have children in our Brevard Public School District?
Yes, I have one amazing son in Brevard Public Schools.
Have you had any experience where you've had a teacher for your son that was a newer teacher compared to a teacher that had a little more years under their belt?
No, not at all. My son's amazing. He has great academic support at home. School is always a breeze. We are very lucky and privileged in that situation, but I'm highly cognizant of the fact that that's not the situation for everyone. And I'm a little bit concerned about that. Going back to the statewide look, In the last year and a half, Bay County, which is our Panhandle, Panama City Beach area, they had a similar millage increase proposal on their ballot, and they shot it down resoundingly for these concerns that I'm laying out, that it's not the right time, not this, not now. People can't afford it. We would like our school system to please manage their budgets, which are increasing, to please manage your budget accordingly, which you are elected to do. And we are so supportive of you as parents, as community members. We are always so supportive, but please, this is not a strategy to keep going to the ballot box and asking more from the community through higher taxes.
I still appreciate
County, which is Tampa. They just shot down a similar millage rate increase. So that's generally Tampa. That's our West Coast neighbors. It was a closer vote than Bay County, but they shot it down as well. And some counties have approved it. But in terms of, yes, to answer your question, going back to the bar graph, Kayte, thank you for displaying that and showing that. I think we have seen that. That's part of the information campaign. You can go online and see that as part of the slideshow presentation. If the suggestion is that because the millage rate was higher before and now it's lower, that's not a reason to feel okay about raising it now. It has to be financially justified. And this is not financially justified. If it's going lower, then that's a great thing. That's part of the beauty and fabric of Brevard County. We are a low tax society, low tax state, relatively speaking. And that's why people love this area and want to move here. So that is my answer to that. Do you have another question, Jacqueline?
Yeah.
Would it be
I could jump in real quick. I thank you for bringing up Bay County. I think that was a few years ago. I will share with you, with the exception of Hillsborough, every county that had the millage on their August ballot passed, except for Hillsborough. And Hillsborough is a special case, I will tell you. And by the way, they were either new millage, like they never had a millage before, or they were renewals for some counties. Hillsborough special case. Hillsborough has been in financial distress. They've been in the news all over the last several years. Honestly, if I lived in Hillsborough, I probably would have voted it down too, because they've been in such a financial mess for the last few years. Sarah, you said something about, it's our job. And I totally agree. And listen, over the last 4 years, we have made some cuts that were easy to make because we keep a certain amount of reserve positions so that if we have a school that has some growth, we can put an extra teacher there. And we said, we're holding too many reserve positions. So we cut the reserve positions down. We've done that actually several times till we're right at the very minimum. But then we've done some cuts that really hurt. We had media assistants at all of our schools that had at least, I believe, 500 students or more, which is the majority of our schools. And we cut all those positions to save $1 million. And I'm still, even just yesterday, I had someone say, are we ever going to get our media assistants back? And the answer is probably no, because that was a cut we had to make that actually ends up causing us to lose services for students because we were making those hard decisions. And so that is not something, even if the millage passes, whether it passes or it doesn't pass, we're going to have to continue to make those hard decisions. Is it time to close some of our little tiny schools, which is not a popular idea in the community, but to be fiscally responsible, we're going to have to do that. And I've already said publicly, if the time comes, if that needs to happen, I will be ready to make those kind of hard decisions. But ultimately, it's not the 5 of us board members or the 4 who voted for it who are making this decision. A decision we made was to send out to the public, because that is all we can do. We cannot raise taxes for Brevard County. Brevard County can raise taxes. So I appreciate the plea, please don't do this. But the truth is the voters need to make the decision, and they need to weigh the pros and cons. Is the pro of being able to pay school staff more, because that's the bulk of it, the 80% of it, is that going to, and the benefit that will happen in our schools, is that worth me paying and I'm not I'm not trying to minimize the impact, but is that worth me paying extra couple $100 on my taxes every year? They're going to have to make that decision. So Brevard has to make it. Just like Brevard has made the decision on the half-cent sales tax. And if Brevard doesn't think that the school district is doing a good job, if they don't think the audits are supplying it, or they just don't want to do it anymore, then Brevard will have to vote no. And Brevard is a very conservative county, and yet we do have these things that have passed. And I don't know what happened November 8th, but I will tell you, if it does not pass, I am fully ready to step back into my job and continue on and say, what further are we going to be able to cut so that we can try to get competitive without it? It's not going to be pretty. I get emails all the time. My child's school grass is not cut. And, I just moved down here from New Jersey and they pay for everything for cheerleaders and I'm having to put out hundreds of dollars. I'm sorry, we have to prioritize. And we're going to continue to make those hard decisions. But, because we do live within our means. We could continue the status quo. We could continue with the budget as we have. But we're going to lose something. We're going to lose the quality of teachers. And listen, every time we lose a veteran teacher and get a new teacher, or lose a bus driver and get a new bus driver, it also costs us extra in training. So, there's so much, it's so involved. And, I don't want, hopefully, Sarah, you don't think I'm coming at you. I just, there's so much, there's so much good that can come from this. And I understand people have a lack of trust. Sometimes people have just their own financial story, and I get that, but I want everybody to make the decision based on having all the information, and then make that hard choice. It's not easy. It's not, I'm a taxpayer and I'm a mom of 3 kids. One just graduated in our Brevard Public Schools. Our family, we're going to make that decision too. I probably can figure it out. For us, it's going to be a yes. But the county is the entity that's going to make the decision, the people. And that's democracy.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that comment. That was very heartfelt. I believe that if you were to ask 100 people on the street, do teachers deserve a raise? I feel like we may get a high percentage of people to say, yes, absolutely. I think that's everyone's gut instinct, especially all that, teachers had to, be adaptable during our COVID times and, learn how to be, e-ready and all that. So Sarah, you mentioned that it's not the right time. It's not the right time because we're, in a recession and, cost of living has just gone up. Would you be for a millage increase if we were in a healthier economy?
Well, that would depend on a lot of different factors. It would depend on what other taxes the school board is pitching. It would depend on what their current budget is. It would depend on other taxes and other budget considerations. So I don't know how I answer that yes or no. To vote no on this referendum, and November 8th is coming up quickly. It's only about 12 more days of voting. So many people have already voted. So we don't know where this referendum will end up. I hope that it gets shot down because I think this is going to amount to, if it passes, a huge burden to the community that we don't need to pay for a county budget that has risen, and they still can't find a way to pay for things, but also hiring 70 new administrators. So I can't answer that question, Jacqueline, in a yes or no. But I will say, to vote no on this referendum is not to say that there are not issues in BPS, in Brevard Public Schools. It is not to say that there are not issues or funding issues or staff issues. It's just to say that this is not the solution to raise property taxes blanket across the county in 2022, in a time of record inflation and on top of the sales surtax and all the other issues going on. This is not the solution. Let's continue to come together as a community and pitch in and find solutions. But a property tax raise on all these, including parents, teachers, and staff, on all these people in Brevard, this is not the solution. Not this and not now.
So not this and not now. What are your thoughts on that, Kayte?
Well, like I said earlier, I don't know that there's ever going to be a time that we're going to, it's going to be great to raise taxes, whether it's you're not going to hit us until next fall and things get better. And I appreciate that Sarah said, she couldn't give you an answer because it would depend on circumstances. Honestly, I couldn't give you an answer either. I mean, if it had been, my first year in office, I would have said, nope, we still got to find stuff. The second year in office, we were dealing with COVID and like, nope, that's not a good time. There's not ever going to be a good time. I would love, I would love to hear, I do love to hear from the community, and I'll put my email address out there from the reach out to me. My email address is campbell.kayte, and you got to spell it right. It's not like it's on the screen. It's Katye. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for making it strange, but campbell.kayte@brevardschools.org. People reach out to me and just give suggestions, because not this way, then what way, and it's our job to find the way, but I love community input. So if you've got a way that we can, because we need to continue to do that. Oh, thanks, it's fixed. We need to continue to find those cuts, because we do have other things that are increasing. You talk about inflation. Every time, our electric bills are going up. Our costs for supplies are going up. And so a lot of that increase in the budget is going towards the kinds of things that that everybody's household expenses are going up. Ours are going up too, is for our schools and our buildings. And so, I totally agree with let's come together and find some solutions, because whether it passes or not, we're going to continue to have to find those solutions, because this takes care of some problems, but we've got others. And so I love that idea of coming together and having those conversations. And but I do think that now is the time, because we have got to stay competitive. We cannot lose more teachers across county lines or across the state or out of state, because to be truthful, we haven't talked about this, but teachers can go out of state and make tens of thousands of dollars more than what they're paying here. They're being paid here. And so the whole country is dealing with a teacher shortage. And we're bringing teachers from Canada starting in January to help us out on a temporary basis. And we are thinking out of the box, thinking creatively. How are we going to meet these needs with bus drivers and everything? And we'll continue to do that. But I do think this is a need for now, or at least I think it's time for the public to make that decision.
That's really great. Any other last comments or anything that you'd like to be heard? Your opinion, Sarah?
Sure. I mean, I would just add that, I respect Kayte so much, and she does a great job on the school board. Wonderful person. I just have a bit of an issue with the process, that you put this out, vote to put this out to the public, and also on this forum say, hey, go check out what your assessed value is on your home. If you're asking people to make a very serious financial decision on their property taxes, impacting an over $1 billion budget, and you trust the voters to make a proper financial decision, but you also say, hey, go figure out what your assessed value is. I think that's part of the problem, is putting this decision out to taxpayers when they don't have the proper info. Their day job is not to scour the budget. They may not know their assessed value, or they might, but the ballot language on your November 8th ballot is very general. It's sweet, it's frothy. It's written to not inform on the finances of this, the financials, the costs. I don't think this should have been put out to the voters. I think that was a bad move. I don't think this should be put out there at all right now. I am just here. I don't gain anything, just so everyone knows, from being here. I don't gain votes. I don't gain financially. Only the joy, comfort, and satisfaction of hopefully imparting some useful information to inform the average voter who maybe can't go to a board meeting or doesn't have time to scour the budget or see board meetings and they have this vote before them and they care, but they don't know what to do. I want to give this information that it is not a wise decision financially. And I encourage my fellow citizens and voters that we all love our schools and our teachers so much, but this is not something to vote yes on. It's something to vote no on right now, all things considered, the pros, the cons, the costs, the benefits, in terms of full, proper economic analysis. This is something that should be voted down.
All right. Thank you for those comments. Anything, lastly, Kayte, you'd like to close with?
Sure. I'm going to add in there, this is also something that I don't gain anything from here, or if it passes. There's 7 people on our payroll that won't get anything from additional millage, and that's the 5 board members, the superintendent, and our attorney. We left the attorney out too. But I would just say I believe that Brevard voters are educated and will make the right decision. And I always am happy to give them information, where to find that information. So that's why I mentioned the Brevard County Tax Collector, because you can go dig through your files and find your bill from last year, or you can go and find it easily online at the tip of your fingers. I also, just for information, a lot of the specific information as to how things will be spent, how much different years of experience could look forward to making, whether they're employees or people from the public, so you can see that those decisions have already been made. Because a lot of people have even said things like, and Sarah, you haven't said this, but, I doubt it'll even make it to the pocket of the employees. We already have those agreements signed, so if it passes, the amounts are already set for the employees. But all of that can be found if you go to brevardschools.org. Right on the front page, there's an information logo, and you can click on that. It'll take you to the website, and it has a lot of the information that Sarah's mentioned, that I've mentioned. But I just want people to make those decisions, make an informed decision. And like I've said many times, vote what you believe, but don't vote based on a lack of information, because it's out there. And I just want people to be able to access it and make the right decision, for them, and we'll deal with whatever the results are. But I have to say thank you so much for letting us have this conversation. This has been really good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And like both of you mentioned, we're all here voluntarily just to have this discussion publicly and gaining some of your questions as well. If you have any further questions, please reach out to us or directly to the school board if you are unclear on anything still. I believe it is very important to be educated. I think if you're a homeowner, you should absolutely know what you're paying in your taxes, and see where you're at with that if you don't know, off the cuff. And absolutely go on, if you can, to the public school site and research, a lot of statistics there. They have their self if you have any more questions. And remember to go out and early vote if you can. And the, November 8th is election day. So make sure to come out and vote and make your decision heard. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, Jacqueline.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kayte. Thank you, Jacqueline.
All right. Well, have a fabulous night.